And welcome back, Sideliners, to your second half of your Sidelines Pass podcast. I am Joshua Thompson, your host. Here we're back with Colburn, Chris Courtney, here on the panel to talk about a little bit, maybe a lot of bit, about NBA playoffs. So, guys, most recently, as of today, we've had two fines handed out by the NBA, handed on down to Bad Boy Matt Barnes and Mr. France Motormouth, Joakim Noah. Both have been fined for throwing out obscenities at fans, and one of the most notable ones is Matt Barnes yelling out obscenities to James Harden's mother, of all people. Very random of anything, but it kind of brings up a good question of how players are supposed to act as far as controlling their emotions and how they're seen as an image on and off the court. So, Baxter, I'm going to start with you. Just looking at players on a professional level, do you think that the NBA, or actually just all players in general, have to have sort of a higher threshold of toleration from fans, a lower threshold? Where do you sit on that?
I know you're not talking about James Harden's mama. Come on now, you don't be talking about nobody's mama like that. No, in all honesty, that's ridiculous. You are a professional athlete. I don't care if you're playing sports or you're a businessman or whatever it is. You are a professional. You have that title tagged to you. You need to act accordingly. This is not high school. This is not college. You don't call people out on Twitter, anywhere. You act professional. You're getting paid millions of dollars to play the game you supposedly love, or just love getting paid to play it, one of the two. You need to act accordingly, and I think that this action from him is absolutely ridiculous, and he needs to be, his fine is appropriate. That's not professional, and with Joakim Noah as well. You push a fan, he gets fined $25,000. Sure, that's pocket change for him. That's a nice night in the town for an NBA player. No big deal. But at the same time, you're a professional. You're held to a certain amount of standards, and these two gentlemen definitely failed at doing that.
Yeah, I don't condone what James Harden said. I didn't quite see the whole thing unfold with Joakim Noah. I do know that he shoved a fan, and that whole thing transpired. Look, I understand too. People are paying money to see you, and in your office space, so to speak, as an NBA player or just as a professional athlete, is different than that of a businessman or somebody else who's going to work for a living and a normal job. So, with that said, there's going to be things that you are privy to as somebody who is observing, these athletes go head to head, that is not necessarily, PG. So, yeah, I mean, Matt Barnes probably shouldn't have said that. That's it's kind of a crazy thing to say to a player's mom, of all people. But at the same time, there are things like that that get said. I think in games that happen across the league during the regular season, during the playoffs, and it just doesn't get really reported. The fact that it was one of those incidents that was kind of uncovered and was kind of brought to the light makes us feel like this is so irresponsible of James Harden, and it's kind of a reprehensible act. But at the same time, it's just like this is almost. We don't pay for professional athletes to shove us or curse at us and do those types of things, but we do pay to get that some of that excitement factor and some of that wow factor when when people get heated, and there is an element of spontaneity to what we're watching and we're watching unfold. So in that respect, I don't disagree with the fine, but I feel like the uproar is such where it's like this is kind of what we asked for in a certain respect. This is what we want as fans, because this is what makes the game even more entertaining. Think about how many people are going to be tuning in to Game 3 and to watch Matt Barnes, of all people, try and go head to head with James Harden. That's what we're. I mean, that's why I'm gonna watch Game 3. Is I want to see what happens between Matt Barnes and James Harden, because Matt Barnes is a notorious hothead. The guy can't keep his mouth shut. he can't he can't lay off. He's known for kind of stirring the pot and getting under people's skin, and so I have no doubt that he's going to be kind of on his A game as far as that goes tomorrow. The cameras might not catch it necessarily, we might not hear it with through the microphone, but you can bet that he's going to be in James Harden's ear again come Game 3.
Now, granted that Game 3 is going to be a little bit closer to Mother's Day, I kind of think that, and this is just in all context of what goes on in between players, but I feel that when he found out that it was James Harden's mom, he was like, oh, that was your mom? My bad. Where had it been any other typical fan, I sort of agree that, and it kind of goes along with a nice little Batman quote, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. We've seen a lot of great players who have been representatives on the USA basketball team, have been heroes in their home area, on their home court, been very great images in the community, go onto the court and after a while turn from this great image into something poor, and there's that big lashing out in the NBA. I mean, Chris Paul's a more recent figure that's been looked at as someone that was a really great figure when he was in New Orleans, and then all of a sudden, the State Farm guy is now the little leprechaun yelling on the court, and all everyone can do is say that guy is not the best image to have on the court. He's just sitting there yelling and screaming at everyone, something that could be misconstrued as passion. And it is totally understandable. I mean, there are a lot of positions out there just in the normal workforce, for example, customer service, where you have to deal with a certain type of person every day, and eventually you will blow up. But the question does still remain, because is it because of the pay? Is it because of the type of job? Is it because it's entertainment that these players are held to a higher standard? Is it too high, in a sense? I wonder that.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut in front of Baxter here, but I think it is one of those things where we do kind of we expect so much out of our professional athletes, and I wonder sometimes why we do. Of course, they are on national TV and they are endorsing products and they are kind of in the public eye a lot, but why do we expect them necessarily to be these holier than thou figures when really they're as flawed, if not more flawed, than the everyday Joe walking down the street? I mean, it's true. It's the truth. I mean, why should we necessarily expect that anything different? I mean, these are people that we're talking about, and while we do want them to act like these heroes all the time, they're not really. And Charles Barkley said it best when he infamously said, I don't want to be your role model. I don't want to be. I'm not the guy to look to know how to act. If a kid is looking to me for how to act, then his parents have failed him in a sense, And so look, I mean, not everyone's got a quality upbringing. I'm not like this would probably be a great discussion for parenting community on Sidelines, but and not everyone has those examples, and so yeah, I get it, understand, but at the same time, it's like we're all human. These guys are human, and when you're making millions of dollars and you have some of the advantages that these folks have. Sometimes you're gonna cross the line because look, you can afford to. You can literally afford to cross the line. So I don't know. That's just my take on it, and I guess I'd be interested to hear what Baxter says. But I just think that we do hold our athletes to maybe too high of a standard.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, you can look at it in a lot of different ways. I feel like anytime, no matter who they are, you pay anybody a substantial amount of money, you expect professionalism from them. And I think a lot of people are really tired of the holier-than-thou, untouchable, as it were. And I think we're really starting to see that with Deflategate and Tom Brady and everybody. People thought he was such an untouchable figure in the NFL, and now rumor has it he might be suspended for the entire next season. We don't know for sure if that'll be the exact case or not, but at the same time, you think of somebody like that, 4 Super Bowls, 4 MVPs. The man is just, a legend. Will more than likely be a Hall of Famer, but he's not untouchable. He's made mistakes, like you said. Everybody makes mistakes, whether you're a professional, whether you're, Joe on the street. But when you do make a substantial amount of money, especially playing sports, I think that the athletes need to realize that they are held to a higher standard and need to act accordingly and not realize that they can do whatever they want and they will never go to jail. They won't, get in trouble no matter what. And we see that in the NFL a lot, I think, especially with this last year with Adrian Peterson and Ray Rice. They thought they were above the law, and what happened to them.
So definitely, it's one of those situations where there is a line that is drawn in the sand, a very hazy, watered out, sort of muddy line that hasn't been said. This is how far you can go before, whether you're a fan or you're an actual employee of whatever organization you're with. This is how far you can go until that's just too far. And it's just a matter of how do you know what's crossing it or not? Definitely should be some clear lines drawn. What lines really need to be drawn right now is who's going to step over the line and step up to the line to make some things happen in this playoffs coming up. And let me tell you, gentlemen, this is a very exciting set of series here. We have 4 different series that are all tied up at a game apiece. It just shows that no home court advantage is safe. It doesn't matter who you are. Even the Warriors got beaten at home by the Grizzlies. And so just looking at each game, now that it being a best-of-5 game series, give me your quick thoughts, starting off with the top seed in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. How do you think this series pans out, Chris, and who finishes and how?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting series now with Mike Conley coming back from the injury to his face. That kind of changes the face, no pun intended, of the whole series. You look at it and you have Memphis going into Golden State, a place where Golden State has been damn near flawless all season long, and they win that game, and then the series shifts back to Memphis. This is the first time this Golden State team has kind of been faced with this type of pressure. And they're still 1-1, and even if they lose a game in Memphis, they can still come back. But they got popped in the mouth a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of respond because they're not used to really having people punch back at them like Memphis can do. Memphis is a gritty team, and they can make things really difficult for a couple shooters like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and so. And I think they do have an advantage down low with Gasol and Randall. So, that's an entertaining series. I think that Golden State still wins it, but I would not be surprised if this went 6 or 7 games, and each game from here on out was very, very close. Looking at the West, I think the Rockets and Clippers going back and forth with that. Again, another series I could see going 6 or 7 games. Really, Chris Paul, how he comes back, if he's able to come back in this series, is going to determine a lot of things, and that's no surprise to anybody. But if he does come back, how effective is he with a hamstring that is either going to be ailing or is just recently healed? That's going to be a storyline and something to really keep a close eye on because Houston's got the talent to run with LA, and I think if Dwight Howard and Josh Smith can be consistent enough down low to neutralize Blake Griffin, who I said it before the series began, this needed to be a Blake Griffin series for the Clippers to move on and advance. If they can neutralize him and continue playing well, James Harden's going to bring it. You can see the Rockets advancing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's not much else to really say in all honesty. I think you look at Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, it's really hard to argue against them. I know Memphis did what they did, surprising a lot of people, but in all honesty, Golden State, I think, still wins that series, probably in 6 games. I don't see them going to 7 in all honesty. Looking at that Atlanta-Washington game, now with the issue with John Wall, is he's out injured. I think Atlanta finally has that opportunity to really pull away and really prove to a lot of people that they're not just good in the regular season, that they can actually win in the postseason as well. And then looking at the Rockets Clippers, probably arguably the best game going on right now, the best series, and you can make an argument for the Cavaliers and Bulls, but Rockets Clippers, two of the premier teams, two of the most premier players going at it at the same time. Hopefully Chris Paul is able to come back, because that would be devastating for the Clippers if they are not able to get back their star player. We saw what kind of the impact he can make. The man is an absolute machine. They need him on the court to win, and if he does not come back in the near future, I honestly don't see the Clippers pulling this series out at all. And then the Cavaliers and Bulls, I mean, what can you say about it? It's two Eastern Conference heavyweights duking it out. It's going to be the last team standing. Wouldn't be surprised if this series goes to 7 games. Are we going to see some LeBron magic, or is Derrick Rose going to finally beat his injury curse, or is it going to be Jimmy Butler? Who's going to step up in this series? It's all going to kind of come down to that. We know LeBron's capable of scoring points. Congratulations. We've known that for 12 years. But at the same time, it's time for somebody else to step up in that series. So Cavaliers, Bulls, I'm curious, and I think Jimmy Butler might be that guy. But at the same time, the Cavaliers' depth might be too much for the Bulls.
So coming down to it, fellas, give me your picks. So we'll go back and forth. Start with the first series being Atlanta and Washington.
You want me to go first, Josh?
Go ahead, Baxter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just asking a question. Are we picking the full series, or are we just picking the next game?
Let's go ahead with series winner. Series winner. Who's going to come out of it?
Series winner. In all honesty, I was not an Atlanta Hawks believer during the regular season. I didn't think they were as good as their record indicated, but I do like their chances, honestly, now. The fact that the Washington Wizards, they can put up a good fight, but I think Atlanta wins this in 6 games.
Atlanta in 6. Chris?
Yeah, I was fully on the Wizards bandwagon until John Wall smashed up his wrist. That's really unfortunate for them. I think that Bradley Beal is good enough to maybe win a game or 2 there, but if Wall is out for an extended period, the Wizards are done. And so I'm gonna bank on that being the case, and I'm gonna take Atlanta winning in 6.
Atlanta in 6. Okay. And moving further up the coast, Cavs and Bulls. Cavs, the last we left off, were up by a couple of points. A couple of technicals assessed to both Noah and James, and we all know about how that rivalry has panned out across the last few years. So we'll start with you, Chris. Series winner out of the Bulls and Cavs.
Tough. It's maybe the toughest series, I think, in the playoffs to pick. I'm going to go Cleveland, and I'm going to stick with that pick. I think that they are led by just a force of nature in LeBron James, who I think Chicago has more answers collectively for than maybe any team in the Eastern Conference. But I just think that they're going to have that mojo, and the way that they played in Game 2, I think, showed me a lot as far as, hey, they can still win and handle a very, very good Chicago Bulls team without Kevin Love, and really having the focus kind of narrow down between Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. Now they'll get J.R. Smith back. I think that's going to be a big lift for them. I think the Cavs are going to win. I think it's going to go 7.
And Baxter?
I was going to say Cavs in 7, but I'm going to be ambitious and say Cavs in 5. In all honesty. I know. It's a lot to have happen, but when it comes to the playoffs, LeBron is the king for a reason, and I think he's going to step up and take over the series.
Keep in mind, in that series, the one player that has stepped up has been sort of the 6th man for the bench, other than Iman Shumpert, has been Delvin Bilda, who's kind of come on here and has picked up the slack behind Kyrie Irving as of late. And the Bulls don't seem to have quite of an answer for him. He sort of went off in Game 2, which basically helped create that offense. So it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to see if the Bulls continue to not have an answer for him and finish off the Bulls in 5. I'm noting you that, by the way, Baxter. Docking your points if you don't get that right. Going on to the somewhat interesting shouting match that's going on between Houston and LA Clippers. Baxter, who do you got coming away with that series?
In all honesty, before the series started, I thought it was going to be the Rockets. And now with Chris Paul going down, I still think it's the Rockets, and I think the Rockets will clean up and take this one in 5. I don't think Blake Griffin is good enough to carry the team on his back.
Chris?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Baxter, but I'm going to take the Clippers, and I think this is going to go. I think this goes 7. I see the Clippers being a lot tougher than a lot of people are giving them credit for, or a lot of people gave them credit for before the playoffs began. What they showed me in the San Antonio series tells me that they've got enough to make it at least to the Western Conference Finals. I think they can still do that without Chris Paul. It's not going to be an easy task, and it might be one of those series where it takes every ounce of what they have to get through the series, to reach the Western Conference Finals, and I could see them kind of petering out once they get to that point. But I think that the Clippers are good enough to win this series without Chris Paul. They've proven it, and I think that they're going to do it in 7 games with or without Chris Paul. And it's going to be happening on the shoulders of Blake Griffin.
Quick update, Chris Paul reported to be ready for Game 3 despite an hamstring injury, so be on the lookout for that versus James Harden, who went off in Game 2. And finally, the match that everyone thought would be a sweep, or at least anyone that is from the Bay Area, Golden State Warriors versus Memphis Grizzlies. We'll go ahead with you, Chris, and we'll finish out with Baxter.
Cool. Yeah, I think the Warriors are... The Warriors are the team that I think everyone thought they are, and that's a very, very good team, perhaps the best team in basketball. They certainly showed that in the first game against Memphis at home in Game 1. Mike Conley returns. Memphis makes things difficult. I think Golden State's going to adjust. I think they're going to steal at least one game in Memphis. I see it going back to the Bay Area, probably tied up 2-2. And from there, it's really, I think it's going to be, it's tough to see. I think it's 6 or 7 games. I think the Warriors will figure out a way to close it out in 6, but look for Memphis to really make this difficult to close out for Golden State. They're not going to go quietly. They're a team that I think is probably the toughest team in the Western Conference. They are built like an Eastern Conference team as far as them wanting just to kind of manhandle you. Memphis will do that. They can do that, and despite Golden State's good shooting, they can kind of neutralize that with their physicality. So look for Memphis to make it difficult for the Warriors, but the Warriors are going to advance and move on to the Western Conference Finals.
I mean, in all honesty, look at the Warriors. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry both average over 20 points a game. It's hard to argue against that, and those two are 3-point gurus. I think Memphis will put up a big fight, but Memphis is going to be just annoying enough to force 6 games, but Golden State still wins the series in 6, honestly. No, there's really no arguing against that.
Quick points about Game 2, 7-point loss despite the fact of the combined efforts of Klay Thompson and Steph Curry going about 30%, and Mike Conley starting the game out 4-4 on the floor with the mask on. So a couple of things to watch out for. Definitely the shooting of the Splash Brothers and the continuance of the performance of Mike Conley in that series. So we're about to wrap this up here, guys, but we've got to do something important. We got to talk about everyone's work during the year. We're talking about the Players Awards. So I just want a quick agree, disagree, one sentence why or why not. We're talking about some of the greatest player awards that are handed out during the season. Let's start out with Rookie of the Year went to Andrew Wiggins, the man who was shunned, in a sense, from the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we'll start with you, Baxter. What do you think, yay or nay? Do you think he deserves it, yes or no, and why?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, look at his work ethic in college and what he did this season. I mean, the man is a machine. He did a great job. He's got an excellent career ahead of him as long as he stays healthy. It's hard to really argue against, his impact that he had on the team this year.
Chris?
Yeah, I think Andrew Wiggins is definitely deserving. I think he's the face of that franchise moving forward. I'm really excited to see him and Zach LaVine play together. I almost called him Adam Levine. I'm really excited to see. No, really excited to see those two guys play together. That pairing has just star power written all over it. I think it's going to be really, really cool. Just thing to watch them grow together. So Wiggins, I think, is the pick, and I disagree with the Cleveland Cavaliers trading him during the offseason. I think that is a move they will rue for a long time.
Absolutely. Definitely the best runner-up for that award should have been Jabari Parker. I think those two were hand in hand, especially with the Bucks making the playoffs. But that'll be an argument for next season.
So mad Jabari got hurt. So mad.
Say that again?
I said I'm so mad that he got hurt.
A lot of people were, and definitely he was part of the reason why that team was so dominant, along with Greek Freak. But again, definitely a good discussion going forward to see how those two show up over the next few years. And talking about how they improve, most improved player, Jimmy Butler got that award. Thoughts on that, Chris? Agree, disagree?
Totally agree with naming him most improved player. I think you could have even included Draymond Green in that discussion, but I think Jimmy Butler, with what he did, with the Bulls just being kind of a walking mash unit for the past couple of seasons, this season he had a breakout year. Best defender and arguably their best offensive player when they really need kind of someone to create their own shot. Butler is a guy that they can go to. So I think Jimmy Butler is certainly deserving of the most improved award.
I mean, Marquette University is all of 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, so you're welcome for Jimmy Butler, Chicago.
Oh, taking credit for that.
No, exactly. We gotta. Us Wisconsinites, we gotta grab credit where credit's due anytime we can. We're not as bad as Bear fans though when it comes to stuff like that. Anyway, though, no, Jimmy Butler really though blew up this year in NBA, and he continues to do everything and more that the Bulls need him to do, especially in the playoffs. He was crucial against the Milwaukee Bucks in that first-round series, and we're even seeing that now against the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's been on the floor, even looking a live look into the game right now. He's been on the court for 39 minutes tonight. He leads all the Bulls players tonight, and he's scoring buckets. I mean, you got to do that. You got to give it to him, especially from his development from year 1 to 2.
Awesome. We're just going to go ahead and wrap this up real quick with one last guy, the guy that we're all talking about that will be definitely leading this series, MVP, Steph Curry. Agree, disagree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it, Baxter.
No, I mean, it's what he speaks for himself. The man is arguably one of the best players we've ever seen in recent history, and in all honesty, he'll probably, if he stays consistent, which I think is a big thing, one of the greatest players to ever play. The man is a three-point machine. He has fun while he plays the game. He is not selfish. He knows how to pass the ball, and he rightfully deserved that award this year.
And Chris?
Yeah, it's. I don't know if we've ever seen a player of Steph Curry's ability impact in such a kind of a slight, small frame. I mean, he's the best shooter that I think I've ever seen, and he's a guy that his game has developed so much from when he entered the league as a rookie to now. He's an extremely good ball handler. He has improved drastically on defense. He's an adept passer who averages close to 8 assists a game. He is the best player in the league this year, and I think he's going to have, as long as he can stay healthy. And he's had ankle injuries in the past and things that have kind of hampered him in his development in the past. But if he can stay healthy, we're witnessing one of the most brilliant players, I think, of this generation.
Agreed on all points. James Harden coming in at a decent number 2, and somehow LeBron James sneaking in there at number 3, but that's a whole other argument aside. Other than that,
there's stuff in the ballot boxes.
Say it again.
There's stuff in the ballot boxes for LeBron. He's paying him off. Conspiracy.
We're going with Florida votes on that one. Okay, so we'll go ahead and check the win count on this. Thanks again, guys, for joining us here on the Sidelines Pass. Again, this is Chris Courtney, Baxter Colburn, Joshua Thompson, signing off from Sidelines Pass.